Hey everybody, it's me, it's your friend, it's Saul. Today we're doing something a little different. Usually I bring people on here and I interview them, but today we're gonna flip the script, if as the kids would say. And I got to tell you, once a year I get asked by Professor Mark Silver, not just Mark Silver, Professor Mark Silver from the Schulich School of Business, which my understanding is the number one B school in Canada. He asked me to come in, talk to his class. We do a little thing about social media, talk about the importance of having a personal brand. And of course, this year we're all in our homes. We're all social distancing. Mark lives like 2 blocks from me. We could have done this face to face, but we're social distancing too. So we decided to do this virtually. We're going to do this virtually. We're recording it. He's going to play this for his class in a couple weeks, but we thought if we're doing it anyways, why don't we do it for everybody? And you guys can follow along. You can pretend you're in a fancy business school if you want. Otherwise, please, hopefully there's some information here that's interesting to you. And feel free to drop questions in the comments and participate and sort of follow along and have fun. So this is the last time I'm going to be leading this conversation. I'm going to hand it over to Mark Silver right now. I almost feel like we have to flip the squares on the screen so you're in the front position, but we'll make it work. So everybody, welcome Mark Silver from the Schulich School of Business. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Saul. Thanks for having me on your podcast, your channel, your branded personal expressions. It's always great to chat with you. I never know what you're going to say. That's kind of the beauty of why I like having these conversations with you.
Saul, actually, what I'm going to say.
To be fair to the audience, so we can own up to it already, I gave Saul a list of questions. Most of them are softballs for him, but when you're talking to a class of 2 to 3 dozen MBA students from all walks of life and all parts of the world, you really want to give them a perception of like, what does it mean to have a personal brand? And Saul, right down to his logo. I mean, I don't know anyone who, as strongly as he has that brand, puts it out there and lives by it day in, day out. So we're not gonna try to talk too much and have too much cross chatter, but I want to encourage people to ask questions since we are doing this live. And so let's just get it going. So let's start with, when did it occur to you, that you actually had a professional persona? You actually had your own brand?
So it never occurred to me that I had one, because everything I've done for the last 20 years has been by choice and by plan. This isn't an accident, that I have shirts with my face on them. And if you see, Batman even has my red glasses. I go to every, none of this is by chance. The first time that I really worked hard on my personal brand is probably 20 years ago. I was running a comic book publishing company, and I was selling comic books that were $1 more expensive than Spider-Man and Batman, and nobody knew my characters. And so to really it's always been about, how do you stand out, and how do you stand out and be memorable? How do you stand out and add value? How do you distract people from other people that are maybe offering something the same as you or better than you, or thing like it's nothing's ever been by chance. So, when did it occur to me? It's never occurred to me, because it's always been, very calculated and planned. And that's the way your personal brand should be. Personal brands are so important. And I would say right now, they're even more important than ever, because, Mark, I'm going to put you back on the screen. Whenever I say your name, I'm going to put your face back on the screen.
There should be some AI that drives that from this platform. StreamYard, first time using that one here, Saul.
Yeah. But so now is the most important time to work on your personal brand. Mark and I are 2 blocks away from each other, and I have not seen him in a year or thing, because we would always bump into each other, or we would make an effort to see each other. we're all in our homes. We're working remotely. 90% of us are working remotely, or some people are venturing into our office. Every good thing that's ever happened in my career has happened from being in the right room at the right time. That room could have been a conference. That room could have been an event. That room could have been a party. But it's the people I've met. It's the conversations I've had. It's the opportunities that I've been able to get in front of people and pitch. And those collisions, I think that's sort of like a buzzy catchword phrase that I don't really like. Buzzy catch.
Well, I like collisions. I've been using occasions, but collision sounds much more dramatic.
But like, that's where magic happens. And guess what? Magic isn't happening right now, or collisions aren't happening right now, because we're not having these collisions, and we're not, these things aren't happening by accident. So, what does that mean? That means we have to create our own collisions. We have to, we can't be shrinking flowers, if that's even the right cliche or whatever. Now is the time that people have to remember you. Now is the time that people have to know why you're important, what your skills are, what value you bring to a project, what your previous accomplishments are, because out of sight is out of mind. Being forgotten is the same as being like completely, invisible. If you want to get ahead in your career, if you want opportunities, there's two things you can do. You can sit at home and bitch and moan why other people are getting more attention than you, or you can actually make a real effort that you get the attention. But attention has to be for the right reasons. It can't be like, you don't want to be what I call America's Funniest Home Videos attention, just getting kicked in the balls or accidentally hit with a baseball bat or something. That's not the kind of attention you want. But, it's like, it's about really getting the proper attention so you are thought of top of mind when there's an opportunity or a new job or a new project or anything. It is kind of amazing. I speak at conferences, semi regularly, and I did 37 keynotes last year. This calendar year, I've done 3. So why is the big drop? Well, you could say because there's no conferences being done now, but really, I think the reason that I'm not getting the same opportunities that, like a Mitch Joel or somebody is getting is because my magic is on stage. My biz dev comes from on stage. You see me talk, I'm irreverent, I'm different. I'm going to say something that people are going to remember, and I get 2 more invites from that one talk, and it keeps snowballing. Because I'm not on stage, and I do a couple virtual talks, but that's confined to a very small number of people, I'm not getting the same amount of opportunities. So that's cool. That's fine. Little bitter about it because, it's money coming in the door. But at the same time, I realize that this just goes back to the collisions, and it just means I have to work harder to make those collisions happen. I have to work harder to share my ideas and to be out there and create content because that matches my goals. If your goals are not to, have a big following and things like that, you don't have to go, you don't have to be public about things, but you do have to be a little bit more vocal inside of your, whatever your communities are, whether it be your work, whether it be wherever, because this is really the time where opportunities are going to go to people who are the loudest. And I'm a big fan of being loud with an asterisk.
Well, let me stop you there for a second.
I was just going to go for an hour.
No, I realize that we have a lot of experience chatting together. But for the audience and for the class later on,
I want to give a shout out to Drew Rakowski. So true. he agrees with everything I'm saying. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Drew. We'll come back to you. Give us a couple examples of how you communicate that brand. And let's not worry about today where we're kind of limited and not having those collisions, but roll the clock back to when you were on stage. What do you say to people? Or what are those one-liners, those zingers, the shock marketing that I know you're one of the best at? How do you make yourself memorable?
So first of all, what works for me may not work for other people. So I always tell people, you have to believe in your own BS. I don't know if we could swear on this, so I'll play it nice.
Everyone is over 18.
All right. But you have to believe your own nonsense. Like the people who create characters for themselves, I think, are the ones that have the hardest time to sustain, the character or whatever you want to call it. So I believe all my own BS. I go out there. My strategy for speaking at a keynote is I open with a really offensive comment, not racist or anything like that. It's more like self-effacing to just make people uncomfortable, and then I've got their attention, and then I spend the next 90 minutes or 60 minutes or however long I have time to win their love back. So I've told 9/11 stories in New York City. I've told personal stories about my childhood where I think I might have been molested as a child. I open with something to really grab people's attention, because that is my thing. And then I go I go through everything I do in my talks. I only use myself as examples. I use my career as an example. So I give you real marketing lessons, but my case studies are things I've done personally. And the reason I do things that I've done personally is, why would I give up my stage time to talk about Apple or whoever? And why would I give up my stage time to give examples of projects that I wasn't personally a part of, that I can't actually tell you where the idea came from or how it worked out? So I encourage people to interrupt me. I encourage people to make my talks completely immersive, because I'm giving you examples of things I've done in my career. You can ask me where the idea came from. You can ask me, what pitfalls happened along the way. No marketing plan is ever smooth. No initiative is ever smooth. I can talk about all the good and the bad. If I just stand up and I'm speculating on, Apple this or Microsoft that or Amazon this and that, which a lot of people do, usually I think those people are great speakers. They're probably not real marketers. They're probably not real business people. They're great at speaking, and that's cool. That's a skill.
Well, let's expand on that a little bit, because there is this difference.
I'm going to get back to it, but
I think you did a good enough job when you talked about some words there that I won't repeat. But so for you, you're an influencer, you're a brand, you're a marketer, you're doing that for well, you are fairly influential here. But let me,
here's the thing.
I'll let you disagree with me in a second.
I might be influential in how people should carry themselves or how people should market, because I'm very strong-willed about that, and I believe that I have the better way of doing things. I don't push products. I don't, I never take money from anybody to endorse something.
What about Audible?
Well, that's a referral thing.
All right. Anyway,
someone's got to eat.
I understand. So let's look into, you have a personal brand as a business person. So so you and I are in the roles where today I'm representing the Show School Business as a faculty member, but generally, I'm involved as a leader in various businesses. You're doing that the same, whether it's your own consulting business or companies that you've worked for over the years. So it's kind of obvious. We have a personal brand. We need a personal brand. How people interpret that, that's another story. But if you're not a top executive, if you're not a marketer, if you're not a salesperson, if you're, I don't mean to pick on people in accounting, but if you're in accounting, but how important is it for you to have a brand?
You have a brand, whether you realize it or not. My brand is made up of 5 pillars, and I'll go into them in a second. But if you do not actually push your brand out in the world, your brand will be formed for you. You'll be the lazy guy, or you'll be the pretty woman, or you'll be the guy who eats all the donuts in the break room, or whatever. People put other people in baskets or boxes or whatever, cliche. Your brand is going to be like, everybody has a brand. You're either the guy who's great at work or shitty at work. You're the person who's always late or always on time. These are the things that people put in the box for you, because you haven't given them anything else to put in that box. So I have 5 pillars of my brand. Okay. Here are my 5 pillars, and I push these out every time. I live these pillars. I live This is my brand. If you were to reverse engineer my brand, this is it. So my first pillar is fun. I want people to always have a good time around me. I want people to always feel good when they see me speak or meet me in person or whatever. That doesn't mean I'm happy all the time. It doesn't mean I'm fun all the time. But when I'm out in the world, I try to create a fun experience for people.
Oh, that's original, fun guy.
All right, well, listen, I'm getting to it. Smart. Okay. It is so important for me to not just be thought of fun guy. I have to be smart. And not only do I have to be smart, I have to be the smartest person in the room. When I do talks, I collect all the quotes that people say about me and I share them. If people do sketch, notes and stuff like that, I share them. I'd much rather my legacy to be about, teaching people than making people laugh. But the two things are connected because I want to teach people through a bit of a fun, different experience. The third pillar of my brand is being inappropriate. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I'm inappropriate because that is who I actually am. I'm not making it up for, it's not a character. It's not a thing. The things that make me laugh are usually the things that maybe some people would say is not okay. And I share that. That's why I'm able to make an inappropriate comment. I swear a little bit, but I swear because it's actually how I feel at that moment. There are people who just drop f-bombs because they're like an exclamation mark, and it's a lazy way to get a joke. So I try to be very real about where I use profanity and things like that. But like man, nothing makes me laugh more than things that would make other people cringe and make people uncomfortable. Making people uncomfortable is actually a really, really amazing emotion to use, in all circumstances. The fourth pillar of my brand is accomplishments. My work has been featured in 6 New York Times best-selling marketing books and business books. I make sure everybody fucking knows that, because just being the fun guy, just being the smart guy, and just being the inappropriate guy, that means nothing if your work doesn't have meaning, if you haven't had success, if you haven't been validated by other people. There's lots of people way more fun than me. I cry myself to sleep a lot of nights, Mark. So you can't be fun all the time. But I make sure that people know. I've had 3 features in Forbes magazine over the last 20 years. I've been featured once in Inc. magazine. I've been in Fast Company. It's like I give out copies of other people's books that I'm in because it's better than a business card. It is so important to have outside validation, not for my ego, for credibility, because my job is to find other jobs. My job is to keep the machine running. So I could scream and yell how wonderful I am all the time, and I do. But man, it's so much better if you can show somebody something like this, or you show somebody books that you've been featured in and stuff like that. It goes a really long way. And here's the most important part of my brand. I even made a slide because I predicted you were going to ask this question.
You're well prepared.
The last pillar of my brand is that I make sure everybody knows that I know how to please a woman. So you can laugh and whatever, but that line sums up all of my other pillars of my brand, and it's my differentiator. And it's exactly what you spoke to. You said, oh, everybody's fun. Exactly. You need a differentiator in your personal brand. Everybody's nice. Everybody's smart. What is it that's going to make people seek you out? What's going to make people remember you? Because again, I said at the beginning, being forgotten is being invisible, and people who are invisible don't get opportunities. They don't get new jobs. They don't get headhunted. They don't get promotions inside of their company. They don't get anything. It's like it's the worst thing in the world, being invisible. It's almost better to be bad at what you do than be invisible, because at least if you're bad at what you do, people will talk about you, and maybe somebody will see some gold in you. But your differentiator is so important. And I would say out of all the pillars, and I believe everybody should have pillars, because when I go out, I can look at my pillars and know exactly if something is a good fit for me, if a project's going to work, if the people want this or want that, or do I fit in here or do I don't fit in there. But my differentiator is the absolute most important thing, because it is the thing that most people talk about, is and whether they're talking about it negatively or positively, or snickering or think I'm full of shit or whatever. That's like, as long as they're talking about me, they'll find all the other things. It's like, who is this guy? I'll go Google him. Wow, this guy's actually done some shit.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, having those pillars, and maybe when the students listen to this in a while, they'll in their big assignments, their personal brand report, hopefully they'll take the pillar strategy that you're talking about here today. But a lot of people are shy, Saul. Maybe they don't want to express themselves the way that certainly you're comfortable with, and I'm comfortable too, but to a much lesser extent. I mean, even recording this, if we would have done it like on Zoom, and I would have just recorded it and shared it with the class when it was time to do that, that would have been fine. I would have been 100% comfortable with it. The fact that we took that step and did something uncomfortable and are putting it, I think, on Facebook and LinkedIn, I mean, that's a little bit uncomfortable for me, but you know what? I gotta eat my own dog food here, and I think it's the right thing to do. But I want you to help us with advice for those people who aren't yet, haven't come out of their shell yet. And the way I'm going to frame this is, how does your personal persona compare with the person that you truly are? And is there a point or a jumping off point specifically where you're like, okay, I'm in my personal life, I'm not going to bring this in here. And in my professional life, I'm vice versa, not going to bring that there. Do you have those rules separate from your pillars?
So first of all, let me just say we've got a couple questions here. Dixie and Marina, we'll get to you guys. I see you. I haven't forgotten about you. I promise we'll get to them. And Dixie, I love you with all my fucking heart. So we're gonna get to your question. The question you asked is, are there, what if you're shy? What if there are things in your personal life you don't want to share? Things like that. I share almost nothing about my personal life. I am the exact same person in real life as I am online. I'm the same person personal as I am professional. But I've made a choice, and there's no math behind this choice. You guys don't care, like who I sleep with or where I'm going or all that stuff. I made a choice that the value I'm going to bring to people is twofold. It's going to be, hopefully I'm entertaining people in some way, and hopefully I'm teaching something in some way. But maybe I would post pictures at an event or something like that, because that boosted the myth of me. But it's like, I look at people, and there's nothing wrong with this. This is just my choice. I look at people who post on Facebook their house or their car, or like stuff that they've bought. And like, that's cool. That works for you. I don't need validation for someone to say I have a nice house. I'm not sure if I even do have a nice house. I don't need someone to tell me I have a nice car. I don't need, people to tell me that, that's cool or this is cool. That's not what I've decided that I want out of social media. So these are all personal choices. Am I playing a character online? Absolutely not. I would say in some ways, the person I am online is maybe got a little bit more energy than I have in real life. And I can turn it on for an hour, and then I'm going to need to take a nap for like 3 hours this afternoon, Mark. You're exhausting me.
It's okay. I'll walk by with a coffee. I'll just ring the doorbell and run away.
But when, I mentioned being loud, and we have a question about being loud. You should be whatever your personality is, because you want people to actually like you for you, and you want people to want to work with you or want to offer you things or want to do whatever your goals are. My goals are for social media are all professional, with like 80-20. It's I want to keep the machine going. I want I have an ego. I do love the attention. I do love the adulation. I like when people tell me I'm beautiful. But it's like, for friends, people I care about, people I love, I'm going to text them. I'm going to call them. I'm going to FaceTime them. I like to keep track of my friends online. Dixie, who we have a question waiting. She's a very, very dear friend of mine, and she's someone I admire so, so much. So I watch everything she does, and I'm grateful that she shares as much as she does. But for me, like, my goals are never to have someone tell me that like whatever. I don't know. I love art. I've got a very small but meaningful art collection of myself. I would share something like that probably more before I would share like I don't know.
Let's
I'm
get a little
blank.
more specific about it. I mean, so there's different platforms out there, as we all know, and what you do on LinkedIn might not be what you would do on Instagram or TikTok, for example. So if you can give advice.
I'm not on TikTok, and
well, your kids.
I don't.
Every kid is. We're going to get to that whole TikTok thing in a moment, anyway. But when it comes to platforms, is there guidelines or guidance that you have for people around what's appropriate in what place? Even if someone like you, who, as you've said, generally your professional persona is what's out there. You're not just on LinkedIn and Twitter, although I know you're pretty good on both of them. But how does that play out? What do you put on Instagram? Or I'm sure you're not on Snapchat, unless that's how you talked with your kids instead of on iMessage.
So Snapchat is where I send my nudes and insider stock tips. Everybody knows
for
that.
Everyone knows that now. That wasn't one of your graphics on the bottom, by the way. But anyway.
Do you remember there was a meme? I'm pretty sure Dolly Parton started it. Dolly Parton is literally the coolest human being in the world. If you guys don't like Dolly, hang up now. But there was a meme online where Dolly Parton took 4 pictures of herself. She might not have started it, but I think she made it famous. She took 4 pictures of herself, all the same, like different photos, and it was like, this is the photo of me on Facebook. This is the photo of me on LinkedIn. This is the photo of me on Instagram. And this is the photo of me on Tinder. And the Facebook one was like a casual photo. The LinkedIn was a professional photo. The Instagram was like having a drink, and the Tinder was basically like in a bathing suit. And that was like, it was like a square representation of all the different things. And I thought that was really funny. I think of my social media channels very, very differently. So for Twitter, I've been on Twitter the longest. It's probably, I didn't treat my Twitter following as well as I should have. And what I mean by that is I followed 1 million people. So to actually see my friends and what's going on with them is very hard, it's very noisy. So on Twitter, I mostly just put stuff like, hey, in 30 minutes, I'm going to be on Facebook Live with Professor Mark Silver, come join me. Or I put on links of interesting articles I've found, or I'll put a joke, or I'll put a movie trailer and say, I really want to watch this. So I would say you will learn the least about me on Twitter. On Facebook, Facebook is mostly people that I'm friends with a few people who I've just met along the way. So you will get a mix of like, I'm doing this professionally, a mix of like a little bit of my personal life. This is what I think is cool. A couple pictures here and there. I talked about my mom passing away recently.
Yeah, sorry about that again.
Facebook and stuff like that. So you will see a little bit more of the personal side of me on Facebook. LinkedIn is all just work. It's here's an accomplishment. Here's an article that was featured about me. Here's something I'm promoting. Here's a new job, stuff like that. And Instagram is kind of like, Instagram, I'd say is my form of visual expression. I will just post pictures I think are beautiful. I'm not a big selfie person. I don't, do a lot of that stuff, but man, I'm probably most active on Instagram out of all of them because I think I get the most enjoyment out of Instagram. But each one has a place and each one has a very different role for me. But they all work together in keeping me out there. They all work together in keeping me top of mind. Staying top of mind is the absolute most important thing for my career. I decided long ago, I was going to start singing like Whitney Houston. I decided long ago, Mark, that if I was going to be successful, there's always two paths you can go. You can either be great at, there's you're a professor at a fancy business school. You probably know this. 1,000 miles wide and a mile deep, or 1,000 miles deep and a mile wide. So 1,000 miles wide is be good at everything, or be okay at everything, but you're hardly an expert at anything because you don't go deep on anything. 1,000 miles deep is be the best in the world at something, but it's probably only one thing. And so if someone needs that one thing, you're the only person they think of. And if they don't need that one thing, they're probably not thinking of you. I decided to be the best in the world at one thing. So that one thing, it's got a bit of a big umbrella, but it's word of mouth marketing. If anybody needs to be known, if they need their business to get attention, if they need their business to build a brand through a non-traditional way, I want to be the only person they call. So I shouldn't be top of mind if you're building a website. I shouldn't be top of mind if you need SEO. I shouldn't be top of mind if you're looking for a pay-per-click, expert and stuff like that. Those are not the things that I pretend to be the best at.
We have another neighbor down the street from you who is actually the expert in that performance marketing stuff. If we want to just create that business,
probably better than them, but that's a whole other.
No, okay, we'll debate it at the park.
But I don't want to be. I want to be top of mind. I want to be the best at one thing, because if you're the best at one thing, people will think of you and people will remember you, and that is even more important than right now. So if you think about it, like I have a little sign in on the wall of my office, and I live by this and I believe it. Do cool shit, tell people. Okay, you have to do cool things and then make sure everybody knows about it.
But what if those people don't? What if people out there that in your network and the social graph, their network, what if they don't think it's cool? What if you're the best financial analyst in the world and you have a decent brand and you share good content, but you also like to crochet, and that collides? Like, what do you say to people who might perceive they have conflict and in their personal brand, and while they might look to express something on one platform, they don't want it to cross over in another, and we know that it's very hard to hide what you put out there, even if you need to log in or be friends with someone to see their content. So how do you grapple with those differences, or people that that you see out there? Because I'm sure you're observing constantly. How do you feel about those vast, I say the polar opposite perspective of I'm so good over here and I'm so good over there, but they really don't mix?
They do mix because they're important to you. I've got different, circles of people, so I published comic books for 10 years. And, through there is really where I learned everything that is the foundation of, why I'm a different style of marketer today. I'm mostly self-taught. At least my foundation is self-taught. I've gone to school. I've learned all the things. I know all the classical marketing stuff. But the thing that makes me great is the fact that I developed my own, foundations through struggling to get, comic books sold. But, I've got friends who I care deeply about that are from 10 years ago in my comic book world. And I've got friends that I care deeply about in my, current business world. And I have friends that I care deeply about that are unrelated to everything. And, when I get a Facebook, friend request, I can look at, who else they're friends with and know exactly what part of my life they fall into. I personally don't hide any of that stuff. So what are the things I care about most? I'm obsessed with like the 66 Adam West Batman show. I'm obsessed with, 80s, 90s, movies like Fletch and Say Anything. These are the things that make me happy. I share them. You don't have to follow in step. I'm not looking for disciples. I'm not looking for, people to follow me blindly. I never, ever,
That's
want to be Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, and I can.
a big statement. That is a really big statement.
Oh, I saw Gary give his first keynote. I've known Gary through the entire rise of his career. I think what he's done is incredible. I think he deserves a lot of adulation for what he's accomplished. But I also disagree with almost every piece of advice he gives. He tells people to drop out of school. He tells people that you should only be entrepreneurs. Man, that stuff gets under my skin because I would not wish my life or career on anybody. It has been a grind. You only see the t-shirts and the stickers and all that stuff. But man, I've had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. You track my career over the last 20 years, and it's just been, it's been a cardiogram or whatever, those things. It has not been easy. I'm doing pretty good now, but if you look at any of my, you look at the past of my career, 6 months from now, I could be sitting on your porch asking for scraps. It's, I
hope not, but
yeah,
I get the point.
But man, like I never, can you imagine, we've talked about personal brand and my ego and loving attention and stuff like that. Could you imagine having someone follow you around with a camera 24 hours a day like Gary Vee does? Like, that's just like, there's something there that doesn't compute. And, we talk about being loud. Gary's the loudest guy out there. But he's loud for just being loud.
He's right, well, let's move off Gary Vee then. Let's look at some other sources. We're only gonna have a couple more questions for the people that have joined us. Thank you very much for that. And then we're gonna get to it's gonna be an Ask Me Anything as soon as I get through 2 more questions, so we can put kind of the coursework away. So we don't look to Gary Vee for inspiration. We might.
Have I answered any of these questions?
I think so. You're doing all right. I mean, you're trending toward an A-, which is generally what people will get into the class anyway, in case anyone thought they'd do better or worse. So the inspiration that you need or get over time, and like you've expressed, it changes, like, because you work in this kind of wavelength pattern.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? I promise it's not about Gary Vee. Rosie Greer, NFL great. Rosie Greer. You know who Rosie is? The man with 2 heads. He was in the movie The Man with 2 Heads. Rosie Greer. Rosie Greer is I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame, but a great NFL, offensive lineman. I don't pay attention to the NFL, but I know him from being in the movie The Man with 2 Heads. But Rosie's this giant of a man, 7 feet, 300 pounds, athletic guy. He put out 2 books about needlepoint, because Rosie Greer loved to needlepoint. That's where he found his calmness. So you talked about, allowing hobbies in, and what if they don't mesh? This guy was tearing people's arms out of their socket on the field, and he'd go home and needlepoint, and he was not embarrassed by it or shy about it. And guess what? There were people who loved needlepointing who only knew him from the needlepoint world. You should never hide your hobbies. You should never be embarrassed about what you love, because that what makes you, you. And if they like, the stuff you share, and if they like parts about you, it's probably because it's the combination of all the experiences in your life. And needlepointing was one of them for Rosie. So, like, you should always share your hobbies and interests, because it's those hobbies and interests that make your personality, and it's your personality that people are connecting to. So,
well, I think your true friends, yes, I support exactly what you're saying. When you move into the acquaintances and then professional spheres, I'm happy to debate it. I think the message does change. Clearly, we know you have your approach, and I love you for it. I'm a little different. I do not have the offensive pillar right in the middle of all my pillars, but I respect that you have it. But looking at
your goals are different. Your pillars match your goals. So that's why I said at the very beginning, don't follow what I do without running it through your own filter. Like what has worked for me may not work for other people, and you could argue it hasn't even worked for me, Like we live in the same neighborhood. I should have a mansion with a moat, Mark.
Yeah, you should be careful when you're coming to my house. The drawbridge, might be an obstacle to leap over. But you're getting to the question I wanted to answer anyway, which is inspiration. So while everyone is different, you've done a fabulous job of clarifying that. You still have people that you admire, that you look up to, that are different than you, that have different objectives in life, different accomplishments. Who are a couple of those people?
So people that I admire, I look for inspiration everywhere I go. I could be inspired by a movie or a book or a person. Some of the people who inspire me, I get inspired by people I've never met. I get inspired by people I talk to on a daily basis. It's like William Gaines, the founder of Mad Magazine, has been a huge inspiration for me. I never met the man. I've read every book. Talk about oddball eccentrics who are successful in business. Bill Gaines, he fought for what he believed in and stuff like that. I look at people like Bobcat Goldthwait, and people can roll their eyes and say, isn't that the guy from Police Academy? Bobcat has, what a voice this guy has. And I don't mean his physical voice. I mean his voice through his art. He has created some of the most thought-provoking films, but the thing that inspires me about him is like he puts everything on the line every time. You'll notice a trend. The people that I admire are usually people who are willing to risk everything to
you don't admire me. I didn't come up yet.
I'm getting to it. I've got a few more people. Right. Okay. I've mentioned Dixie on this thing like 100 times already. Man, does Dixie inspire me. If you guys, if you know Dixie, you're lucky. If you haven't, go listen to my podcast with her. Dixie has had one of the most interesting lives, but beyond that, like, man, every conversation I have with her, my brain is spinning because she just, so smart. Like friends of mine, like there's people like I've got Megan Peters, Jenny Gershon. I can have a conversation with anybody and find something to be inspired by. Art inspires me. You look back at any marketing stunt I've done or anything big and bold, you can usually tie it to a book I read or a movie I watched. I will be inspired by that throwaway joke or that throwaway line that nobody catches, and I will build it into something bigger. I am a constant consumer of information for the result of inspiration. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago with Jay Baer, and he asked me if I thought that the reason my ideas are so different is because I'm Canadian. And I said no, because like I don't leave my house, so geography doesn't make a difference anymore. But one of the things that I think really helps me think a little differently than other people is I read that Rosie Greer Needlepoint book. I like to read things and watch movies that maybe other people aren't watching. I'm not like a hipster. It's like I won't watch whatever the coolest thing out there. I consume all the mainstream stuff too, but my interests just lie a little bit different. And because it's kind of like what they say about your diet, good food in, good food out kind of thing. It's the same thing about what you're consuming content wise. I read, the last book I read was the biography on David Letterman. And before that, I read a book about Gary Shandling. Before that, I read a book about Evel Knievel. I'm not always reading business books. I'm not always reading things, but I can find the lessons or the ideas and things in those books because I just look at everything a little bit differently. And, it's kind of like what comes in, what comes out. And I really...
Okay. Well, to close our lesson for today, and then we'll go on to the Ask Me Anything part of this.
All right.
So to help the students, frame a lot of what you've said over the last 40 plus minutes, like they're obviously earlier on in their career. And what advice do you have for them about how to establish their personal brand?
Okay. So, I'll just recap everything I've said in 2 minutes.
Perfect ending.
Figure out what your pillars are. Your pillars don't have to be inappropriate or outrageous or any of that stuff. Figure out exactly just what you want to be remembered for. Okay, that is really important, because if you can identify it, you can actually put it out there in the world and you can make it a real thing. How you develop your pillars should be well within your comfort level. Don't be someone you're not. But what I would encourage people to do is find that line where of your comfort and just go 2 baby steps over it. So my line's way over here. Your line may be here. If you're not comfortable on camera, if you're not, comfortable with sharing all these things online, don't. Okay, find other things that you can talk about. You should never feel bad about the stuff you post. You should never feel gross. It should never feel like work. Okay, you do not have to be the loudest person. You don't have to be the funniest person. You don't have to be clever all the time. Figure out what you want to use different platforms for. And there's nothing wrong with having, 2 Facebook profiles, one for professional and one for personal. And that personal
that's
one,
bad. Zuckerberg wouldn't like to hear 2 Facebook. I think you're better with 2 Twitter accounts.
or 2 Twitter accounts, whatever. But Twitter, anybody can follow mostly. I don't even know what the security on Twitter is anymore. But
You get a
it's
phone number and a heartbeat.
yeah. But it's like, you don't have to share everything. You don't have to overshare. Okay. Like, I don't share anything personal, and it's not that I'm embarrassed by anything. It's just like, I've decided it's just not what I want. All the people who are real in my life know everything about me. I don't hide anything from my friends, but like, I don't need validation from a stranger. And, maybe, but these are all personal choices. So the other thing I would say, advice for people is, share your personal accomplishments. And I know I just said don't do stuff that feels gross. You have to let people know why you're special. You have to let people know why you're different. Um, if you're early in your career, you're working hard to get that first job and you want that first job to be great. There are so many people looking for work right now that, I posted a job posting for a role, excuse me, at AutoZen. We're hiring a couple people. In 24 hours, we got 1,800 applications.
Wow.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is going to be hard to get great jobs right now. So it used to be my belief of hiring used to follow this formula. For every role you put out there, there's 200 people that could do an amazing job. So I hired based on fit. I hired based on personality. I sort of had this thing in my head. I don't even know that I might get, a HR calling.
We can bleep it out later for the student question.
I would ask myself, would I be okay being on a 5-hour flight with this person? Could I have a conversation with them? You don't get those same things anymore because we're not in the same room with people anymore. You're going to have to work harder to stand out. So you'll be picked over those 1,800 people. It is really hard right now if you're middle of your career, beginning of your career, the height of your career. It's just a real weird time right now, and I hope it's going to get better. But I can't stress enough. You don't have to go the route of the t-shirts. You don't have to go the route of all those things. You don't need a catchphrase, although catchphrases are cool, Mark. I bet your catchphrase is something like, all righty. But
I'm going to have to pay you for that one, aren't I?
But man, you have to let some of you come out, because people are hiring you. They're not hiring, like, anybody could do any job to a certain extent. You got to let some of you out. And that's so important, because even now more, like, communication is harder. You have to really fit into places or it's going to be, you're not going to get promoted. You're not going to get things. So I can't stress enough, be human, be real, be yourself. Don't be exaggerated versions of yourself. Do what is comfortable for you. But man, when you do something cool, make sure everybody knows about it. Even, agree to disagree with Mark a little bit, and that's okay, because there are no firm and fast rules for this. It's all touch and feel. You have to let people know a little bit about, what makes you tick. If the thing that you're most passionate about is maybe not socially acceptable, well, don't share that stuff. That's weird. But, if you love dogs, show that you love dogs. If you love, Friends, the TV show, that's weird because the show wasn't even that good. But maybe there's other people that like Friends and stuff like that.
Well,
But
Netflix has given it a good comeback.
yeah, but you have to let people, behind the curtain a little bit, because that's where connections are going to be made. That's where how you stay top of mind, and that's how opportunities are going to come. So,
well, listen, thanks for doing this today. COVID has impacted us in so many ways, and the students who will be experiencing school, the ones in school right now, the ones who continue to be in school through this, it's not the same without that physical environment. But I will tell you that one part of the experience that I have as a faculty and instructor is that by changing up the format and having this asynchronous learning, it's given me an opportunity to take what would typically be, Saul coming in, having a PowerPoint, which we know is very bad now, and he'd be talking to the students, and maybe some of them would ask a couple questions, but it'd just be Saul getting up there. Plus, he'd have to drive there and park there and all that other stuff.
oh
And
my
I think
God.
this format, park, yeah, that's another thing. But this format, I've really enjoyed the ability to ask the questions up front, to have a dialogue, and then the students can really think what they want. And if they want to reach out to you, I encourage them to do that. I'm sure you do as well. And so thanks for this. And I'll let you throw it kind of back to your show, the Better Call Saul show.
No, I want you to stay 10 more minutes. There's like
I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm waiting for Dixie to ask me a humzinger.
I want us both to answer these questions because you probably come from it from a very different perspective from me. I don't want people to think that my opinion is the only opinion and stuff like that. Because
let's do it.
Like personal brand is all about touch and feel. So Dixie, and please, if you're in the United States watching this, go out and vote. On Tuesday if you haven't. Dixie said, through my career, I've given talks, counseled others about personal brands. I'm the cobbler whose children have no shoes. Admittedly pathetic. I have insecurities about my appearance that hamper me in building my own brand. I'm best on stage in real life, but on social media platforms, I feel insecure about my appearance, undermining my brand. So first of all, let me just say, man, Dixie is one of the most beautiful women in the world. So don't feel insecure about your appearance. But so you're at a disadvantage, Mark. I know Dixie very well, and she's been a dear friend, and she's someone who's helped me enormously in many ways throughout my career. Dixie has had an incredible career. She's worked with Oprah. She's worked with Madonna. She's worked, high up in Nickelodeon. She's had an amazing career, and she has maybe the most incredible brand from that I've ever seen of anybody. So let me go back to the question, Dixie, and this is my opinion. You don't, obviously take it. You feel insecure about your appearance, undermining your personal brand. Every day you go for a 3-hour or 2-hour walk through the streets of New York, and you take a picture of your outfit. And I look forward to that picture every day because you're one of the most stylish people ever. So when I talked earlier about if you don't give people the pillars of your brand, they'll give it for you. If, without knowing you, my pillars for you, or my assumptions for you, would be you're incredibly stylish. You've got impeccable taste in decor because you've got coolest apartment in all of New York City and all these things. To hear that you're insecure, I'm insecure about a lot of stuff. I don't post any selfies. I am insecure about many things. I would say people probably don't think it comes through online. And I would say the exact same thing about you. It never comes through online. I send your profile to a lot of people because you're kind of who I want to be when I grow up. And people are always just amazed by who is this person and stuff like that. So, I would say insecurity is completely normal. I'd be more worried about people who aren't insecure because they'd probably be sociopathic in some way. But man, none of what you say comes through online because I model myself after you in a lot of ways and probably just don't tell you. But so I didn't answer your question. I think I've just tried to make you feel good. Here's a question, Mark, that I'd like you to answer first.
Yes.
And then I will correct you when you're done. Do you think it's different for women that being loud actually doesn't work in your favor? Increasing collisions seems to be a better strategy for women. I have an opinion, but I want you to go first.
Oh, of course. Of course, because it's a great question, by the way, Marina. I think it shouldn't matter. Let's start there. It doesn't matter what your background is and where you're from. It's about what your message is, and you need to be appropriate, even if it's loud. I mean, we've just sat through Saul for the last little while, and he's inappropriate by nature. He already said that as number 3 in his pillar. So if what you're communicating and the benefit that you're bringing to the people around you is something that they want, the volume at which you say it at, whether that's in collisions like Saul is describing, in the physical world, or today where those would happen in the virtual world, you have to look for opportunities where you can be that person. And maybe it's not a social post, or maybe it's not standing up on stage, but perhaps it's another expression. Maybe it's video, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's somewhere where you have the opportunity to be who you are without someone trying to filter you as you speak, or without you being kind of overly sensitive on what you're saying. And that's a lot what I've learned from Saul over the years. I mean, when I came on his podcast, I guess it was maybe a year ago when we recorded it, it was the first time I really encountered that expression where I knew it was going to go on whatever podcasting format it would go on, but it was just going to be out there, and I couldn't really pull it back. I wasn't going to say anything to tarnish my brand, but I was going to let people inside. And previous to that, that would happen within my family circles, within work, within my friends, or within the classroom. And the classroom is a place, and I've been fortunate over the last 7-8 years to be teaching, where I allow myself to be a little vulnerable. So maybe sometimes it's loud, maybe sometimes it's introverted. The point is, if the rules of engagement are set where it's accepted that you are who you are, I don't think it matters what that volume is.
All right, so I agree 100%. I would add on to that I don't believe being loud is a gender specific thing. I think being loud. So let's take the word loud out of it. Let's say being heard. Okay, and if raising your voice is the way you're being heard, or just nailing people with one of the most interesting insights in the room, that is gender agnostic. I think it is so important for people to, instead of being loud, let's call it standing up for themselves and being heard. So, one of the strategies I use a lot of times is in person. I'm an introvert. You put me on camera and sort of a switch goes off, and I can be the life of the party. But man, you throw me in a room with 20 people I don't know, and I'd much rather just look at my phone. But if I have one person with me, there's my security blanket, I can talk. But it's so much more important to be heard. And how you be heard is there's a combination of different ways, but male, female, doesn't matter. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to put yourself out there in whichever way you're comfortable, to make sure that you're getting credit for your ideas, that you're getting to work on the projects that are going to make you happiest. You're getting to lead things that you deserve, because it's just I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen a lot of projects go to the least experienced or the least capable person who just asked for it, or stood up, or raised their hand, and and that's great. That's how opportunities happen, and that's how careers get made. But male or female, it doesn't matter. You need to create the opportunities for yourself, and that comes from sharing your ideas, sharing your thoughts, being heard, standing up for yourself. It doesn't mean screaming, it doesn't mean starting fights, it doesn't mean it just means making an effort to stand out.
And it goes back to your personal brand and your pillars, your own personal pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions that we want to get to?
So there's a bunch of comments. Like Dixie had a comment about Rosie Greer, and that is correct. Rosie Greer did tackle Sirhan Sirhan. Rosie Greer is like one of the greatest people in pop culture history. You should really do a little deep dive on Rosie Greer. And The Man with Two Heads is a really funny bad movie. So, I mentioned Dixie, talked about her photo a day. Those photos are forcing me to get over myself. And that's a really interesting comment, because, you're going to always in life have to do things that make you a little uncomfortable, and the more you do them, the less uncomfortable they're going to make you. So like that's great advice. And Dixie also said she fears doing video. I got to tell you, I actually like doing video because I don't think I write very well, and that's something that I probably am insecure about. So I'd much rather just get up and talk. I can fill 45 minutes without taking a breath. Where you ask me,
proven that a few times in my presence, by the way.
No, but if you ask me to write, 5,000 words on something, it does not come as easily or naturally to me. Dixie, for 10 years, has asked me to write a book. She's even offered to write the book for me. That's how amazing of a person she is. You talk about fear and stuff like that. I like a book seems like permanent, where video to me seems, like it can go away or nobody will see it or whatever. So and also I don't think that for myself, I like video because I feel you do get my personality and you do get the nuance of subtlety and sarcasm and all that stuff, where, in a book, if I make a 9/11 comment, it's not the same and stuff like that. So and again, everybody has their preference. Dixie can write, like better than most people and stuff like that. Writing is not my skill set. So for me, writing is you're taking a picture. I do it because I need to do it, but I also do it to try to get over myself a little bit. So,
well, thanks everyone. Thanks Dixie for the questions, and thanks Marina. And
I don't know what this is in reference to, but I nailed everything.
Well, thanks for doing this, everyone. Hopefully you have a great rest of the day and weekend, and big week next week for most of the world. So I'm sure we're all going to be occupied with how that plays out. Good luck to everyone in the United States getting through that. We're here to support.
Yes. All right, Mark, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to your class. Thank you for, always, and again, goes back to everything I say. Thank you for keeping me top of mind, for coming in and sharing my thoughts. I'm pretty sure that the minute I leave the class, you always tell people, just forget everything you said. I just wanted to bring them in to show you guys what
not to do.
What not to do. And
not at all.
And I'm okay with that. But I do feel that, I do appreciate what you always do for me. It does not go unnoticed, and I'm very I have a lot of gratitude for everything you've done.
Well, thank you, friend. As I refer to him as Saul from the internet, one of the greatest taglines out there.
Yes,
your friend from the internet in particular.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.